second thing has been fixed. Or something. Good evening. This is 11 April 1991, and this is probably one of the oldest films we have in our collection. And all I can say is taken in California, and it's very old. And I will do my best to tell everybody what is here. These are the coaches that belonged to Captain William Banning years and years ago. And he set up a stage line between Los Angeles and San Francisco. Or his dad did. And this is now just a kind of a showpiece, these coaches. This film was taken in about 1927, I'd say. Perhaps 28. It's hard to believe that there's this many years ago. 64, 65 years ago. This gentleman was known as Uncle Captain by me. I can just barely remember him. I'd say he died maybe in 1930, 31. Bunch of ladies sitting on the wall. They certainly wore unattractive clothes in those days. That's my mother holding, I think, Ruth Ellen. And we're going for a ride. That's a 6-horse coach. That's a beauty. You don't see that around too much today. I believe this is taken in Pomona, California, where they had a small ranch, the Bannings did. A lot of kids there, mostly Bannings, I think. I expect it's quite a job learning to drive a team like that. Quite a challenge. I believe that's Hancock Banning. I don't know who that is. Now this is on backwards, but that's all right. Not very important pictures. Bunch of dogs long gone, long dead. Here is a shot of Lake Vineyard the way it was when I first remembered it. And if you recall, those are sitting outside brick ends right now, that cement bowl of fruit. Ruth Ellen liberated it from Lake Vineyard after Tinta died in 1971, I guess she passed on. That was my father's sister, Ann Wilson Patton, who never married and who had 2 adopted sons, neither of whom have amounted to very much. As I recall, Tinta loved dogs, and you can see that. She never married, by the way. This is the wheel that was leaned against a tree, and it's still around somewhere down in one of the parks in San Marino, as I recall. It's a wheel from the wine press they had. These are the back steps to Lake Vineyard. My sister Ruth Ellen was born in this house. And as such, she always had a strange and kind of a natural fascination for it, I think. This is my grandmother, paternal grandmother, Ruth Wilson Patton, the daughter of Don Benito Wilson, or Benjamin Davis Wilson. And that is that shot you just saw is my Aunt Ann Wilson Patton, who was my father's sister. There were two children in that family. March 1927, there you go. That is my grandfather, George S. Patton, who was born in Virginia, and whose father was Colonel George S. Patton of the 22nd Virginia Regiment, who was killed at Cedar Creek in 1864. That's his son, and my paternal grandfather. And I barely remember him, but I do remember him quite well. Right next to him is my father, George S. Patton Jr., with the pipe. Good picture of him, by the way. That's Ann Wilson on the left, my grandfather in the center, and my dad on the right. Another good shot of my grandfather, George. These are really quite historic. Something wrong. We just got to wait. Well, it was being filmed in the dark, I guess. I don't know who that is. Little archery practice there at Lake Vineyard. That's my dad shooting the bow. He isn't doing too well either, huh? He's having a hell of a time. He loved to shoot anything. Beer cans, Coke cans. Doesn't show the target. Maybe they were embarrassed to show the target. I'm quite sure that's Joe Banning on the left. I had a sneeze then. This is about to show the house of my old maid, great aunt, Nanny Wilson, who also never married, and she was lived near Lake Vineyard. I don't know what's happened to her house. It's been sold years and years ago. Pretty house, I remember it vaguely, and I remember her vaguely. There she is at the front door. These are just shots of her house and her driveway in San Marino. And there she is. And she was also the daughter of Benjamin Davis, Don Benito Wilson, who was a great pioneer in California, as everybody knows. Most people know his story. And Ben is getting his portrait, which stayed in our barn for many years and was recently shipped to Washington to be reduced in size somehow. Ben is named for that gentleman. Mount Wilson was named after Benjamin Davis. And there it is. There's an observatory on the top of it now. Ruth Ellen would be 13. We're in Honolulu, we're in Schofield now. And this is her, obviously her birthday, 13. There I am. And I was 4 at that time. That's Mrs. Aylshire, Mrs. Joseph Aylshire. And she had several daughters, one of whom at the age of 4 I was taken with. Her name was Piety. And you may see a picture of her in a moment, I don't know. There she is. How do you like that hat? Ain't that a beaut? There's someone doing the hula. Oh, that's my sister. That's Ruth Ellen, age 13, doing the hula. The hula hula. That is my father's famous dog, Tank, known as the Honorable Senator Tank. He was with my dad in World War I, as I recall, or purchased shortly after World War I. This is at Haleiwa. It was an army beach used by the army. Here's a little bit more of me. I loved it there in Hawaii. I think I've said before that I cannot remember learning how to swim. That's Ruth Ellen. That's my old man going in the water with me. And I think I didn't go for that too much at that time. There I am. Buck naked. That's my dad sitting in the sand, fully dressed with Colonel Joe Aylshire. We were coming home to the States at this time, having spent 3 great years in Hawaii. And we had a hell of a bunch of horses. I can't tell you how many, I don't remember. but it was too many as far as I was concerned. I think these were polo ponies mostly. They were all good horses and mostly born and raised in Hawaii, on the island of Hawaii, probably Parker Ranch. That's the little train that took them off to the harbor. Well, you can see that. That's the Oahu Railway. Luckily, these films were titled by my sister Ruth Ellen. Here we are loading the horses, taking them back to the States. These are the first shots of Green Meadows, and we had a hammock on the porch there. That's Goggy and me. That's my sister Bee there, and that's me. I think we're at one of the horse shows. And on my little pony, Jeff was his name. There's a lead-in class. Not very exciting. Lead in at a walk. This is the family class. I really can't tell who they are. I think that's us. Actually, my two sisters and my parents. The camera we had in those days must have weighed 25, 30 pounds, and I can remember my mother carrying it everywhere. It was in a great big brown case. Now, how you judge a class like that beats the hell out of me, but we did it. This isn't very good, but it's historic. Now we're in a jumping class of some sort. Whoops. Everybody in my family rode at that time, everybody. There's a side saddle. Now, how do you like to jump a horse with a side saddle? I think that would probably be Mrs. Prince. And that one didn't make it. That one made it. Whoop, that one didn't make it. It wasn't considered ladylike for a woman to ride astride in those days too much. This is at the old Myopia show ring. This is pair jumping. When I got older, I was in a couple of classes with Ruth Ellen, and we did very well. The pictures are in the downstairs guest room. downstairs bathroom. I did a lot of showing with her. Right now she's in the hospital with a touch of pneumonia, and I hope she gets better. There she is with her dad, my dad. And this is a show, this is a National Capital Horse Show. We did a lot of horse showing. That's my old man jumping. Wore soft hats in those days. This, I think, would be known as the officer's charger class. There's a knockdown. And a run out. Why people wore top hats and a thing like that, I don't know. I mean, it's very impractical, particularly if you're going under low-hanging branches. But in those days, they checked your dress very carefully. You had to have proper equipment. If you remember the Patton family at that time, you rode. I mean, you didn't have any question about it. You rode, and you just rode and rode. I can remember as I got older, not at this time, but as I got older, I can remember riding with Kent 4 horses in a day, and if we didn't have time to ride 4, we'd lead one and ride one and go back to the stables and lead one more and ride one more around the place there. I think we're back at myopia now. The big challenge was to beat the Ayer family, which we did from time to time. Ooh. Ooh. You almost got policed. That's slang for falling off. Both Ruth Ellen and Bea were excellent riders. This is a bit boring, but it's historic. Today that's my Aunt Hilda Ayer. Who died in 1977. The mother of Neil Ayer, who ran our family office for many, many years, and he died in December 1990 as a result of cancer. He was also a West Point graduate, class of '48. And we haven't seen him yet in the picture. He was too young, I think, for this particular period. But he later became quite a well-known writer. And three-day event and all that sort of thing. He left the Army during the Korean War. This side saddle now, another side saddle, and another side saddle. You can have that. When you were wearing it, when you were riding a side saddle and you fell, you had a problem. The first dead person I ever saw in my life, I'll never forget it, was killed in a hunting field on a side saddle. The horse stumbled at the jump, got into some wire, panicked, and drove the side saddle right through her body, the horn of the side saddle, where you hook your leg across, right through her body, and killed her. That's Daddy. That's my sister B on the right. That's me on Patches. Now Patches' rug sits up in my study right now today. It's kind of worse for wear, but that was the first horse I ever owned that was worth a damn. And he was a pretty good horse. Ooh. This is not focused worth a damn. But it may be over in a minute. No, it's better now. This is a race. I think up at Bradley Palmer Park. As we know it now as Bradley Palmer Park. The steeplechase. And there's a horse without a rider. He just decided to continue on. Oh! That's a bad spill. Glad we got that shot. The guy looked all right, though, when he got up. Maybe we get another spill here in a minute. This is over a brush jump. I think we're back at National Capitol now, the horse show. This place was known as Bradley Farms. It's probably right now a housing area. It was out near Potomac where Johnny lived for years after he retired in '65. These are pretty good sized fences, actually. You can tell the way that horse is going over them. They're pretty well up there. They're probably 4 feet. That's the old man in the center. And Ruth Ellen on the right, I think. He's a hell of a rider. That is definitely National Capitol Horse Show. I remember the grandstand there. That's my mother, having won something. She was a good rider, too. And actually, she was killed on a horse. September 30th, 1953. That's my dad. In uniform. And that is me. On old patches. That's Ma. Here we are coming up on the hill where we're now planting potatoes and corn. That's B, and there's Green Meadows in the background. That's a nice picture. There's the present owner of Green Meadows right there. and he's coming over he didn't, it looked to me like he just fell. And he's coming over that wall, and he's trying to come over the wall. And he looked back, and he found that they'd knocked one stone off. And there's Beatrice Patton right there, I think. My mom. That's the old chicken coop. It's still there. A little bit the worse for wear, but it's still there. And Georgie's paddock is right behind that. And you can see green meadows through the trees behind the jump there. That was before we put the wing on. The pink wing went on in 1939. This is a hunt. Obviously on our place somewhere. Not very good. I appreciate whoever's looking at this, you got to be patient. There go the hounds. Somebody. Jesus, what a mess. Whoops. And bastards would come around here and do the jumps and knock them down, then we'd have to go and repair them. This is a check, obviously, during the hunt. Once in a while you check and you stop and let the horses rest a little. This is somewhere on the North Shore, but not Green Meadows. It may not be Green Meadows either. This is, once again, Washington area, I'm pretty sure. That's the old man again. Big fence here. That's a big fence. The idea is you let down one bar. You're doing this against time. You let down one bar and go back and jump it. And someone else will put the bar back. That's one of the greatest horses we ever owned. That's horse Quicksilver. I remember him well. He's a lovely animal, and he loved to ride. He loved to go out. He never fought you going out. I mean, he'd see you coming up the stables, and he'd start chirping, whinnying. He was a safe horse, too, very, very safe. And probably one of the three best we ever had.